My best friend who worked at Walmart got trapped in a hot oven used for baking bread and tragically lost her life. Now, I'm heartbroken. I've lost her, my boyfriend, and realized just how much of a jerk her mom really is. She was just 19, smart, responsible, and always happy. She had moved from England to Canada about 2 years ago. Originally from India, she loved talking about her childhood, her country, their customs, and the dreams she had for her future. We became friends the day I went shopping with my boyfriend Peter at Walmart in Halifax. We were picking out things we needed and putting them in our cart. I grabbed a jar of tomato sauce, and as I was juggling it with some other stuff, the sauce slipped from my hands and fell. One of the store employees quickly bent down, picked it up, and handed it back to me. I looked at her dark eyes, her warm smile, and her long black hair. Her skin was a lovely wheat color, and I could immediately tell she wasn't Canadian. My guess was confirmed when she said, "Here you go, madam," with an accent that clearly showed she was Indian. At the time, I was studying history in college and had always been fascinated by Asian culture. I had a lot of Asian friends on social media, and I thought, maybe she could be my first Asian friend in Canada. Plus, I was working on a project about Asian culture, and I was sure she could help me out a lot with it. I thanked her, smiling, and asked, "You're Indian, right?" "Yes, I am," she replied. I already knew what her answer would be. "I really love your culture and traditions. I'm also doing a research project and I'd love to learn more about you. Would it be okay if I got your phone number or maybe invited you to a cafe nearby?" She smiled, and it felt like a warm ray of kindness shining down on me. "I'd be happy to help you, dear. I work and study, so I have limited free time, but I'll save your number. When I get a chance, I'll call you and we can meet up." Her voice was soft and kind. She pulled out her phone, and I gave her my number. "What's your name, miss?" she asked, wanting to save it. "Katie," I replied. "Can I know your name too? And can I save your number as well?" I asked, lowering my voice a little to avoid breaking the quiet of the store. She smiled and said, "I changed my Indian name. You can call me Ciara. And yes, you can have my number. But promise me you'll tell me your real name, okay?" I added, teasing a little. "Of course," she said. We exchanged numbers, and just then, someone called out her name loudly. "Ciara?" "Yes, Mom," she replied. I looked over at her mother, who was in the same uniform as Ciara, and apparently worked there too. She was a little overweight with wheatish skin, long black hair, and full lips. I couldn't help but stare, analyzing her from head to toe. She was just as beautiful as her daughter. Ciara waved her hand and said, "It was really nice to meet you, Katie." I blew a kiss in the air with my hand and replied, "Me too, beautiful lady." She waved goodbye, and I felt Peter tighten his grip on my hand. "Katie, why are you so curious about all this?" he asked, his voice quick and a little worried. "You don't even know her. Maybe her mom's sensitive about her daughter. It kind of seemed like her mom wasn't too comfortable with you talking to her." "I know," I said. "She was a bit strict, but that doesn't stop me from wanting to learn more about her country and traditions." Peter pushed the shopping cart and we made our way to the checkout. I felt really happy that I'd met Ciara. It was a big step for my research. I couldn't wait to check out her profile and message her. Maybe before we met, I could ask her some questions. We paid for the shopping and got into the car. Peter was driving, and that's when I grabbed my phone to check out Ciara's social media. She had both WhatsApp and Telegram. I opened her profile and saw that she'd added 3 flags to her bio: Britain, Canada, and India. She had posted a picture of herself in a beautiful red Indian outfit with golden accessories. She looked like a queen. I couldn't help but text her, "Hello, Ciara. It's Katie." She replied almost immediately, "Hi, Katie. I'm busy right now. My mom doesn't like me making friends too quickly, Please don't text me until I text you first, okay? I was shocked. Why was her mom being so strict? She wasn't a little kid, she was young and should be able to make friends. I quickly typed okay and stopped texting her. Peter and I got home, unpacked the groceries, and put everything away. But my mind was still on Ciara. What was her situation like? Was she living with just her mom? Did she have a dad or siblings? Why had she said her mom didn't feel comfortable with her making friends? Hours passed, and around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. Hi, Katie. You can text me now. Hi, Ciara. Tell me more about yourself, your family, your country. I texted her. She replied, I live with my mom here. I lost my dad and my sister in a car accident years ago in India. We moved to England after that and lived there for 5 years before coming to Canada about 2 years ago. What do you want to know about me or my country? I'm really sorry to hear that. God bless your father and sister. So, you live alone here, right? Do you have a boyfriend? I asked, feeling like she might be lonely. She replied, Yeah, I'm in love with a guy from college. We're friends, and he's from Canada. He's been really supportive, helps me out whenever I need it, and even helps us with rent when my mom and I are short on money. I felt for her. She was clearly going through a tough time, but I decided to change the subject and ask about her culture instead. Tell me about your country, your traditions, and your clothes, I asked. She replied, There's a lot I could say, but not here. We should meet up. I put my phone down and made myself a cup of tea, trying to process everything that had happened that day. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Peter opened the door but came back saying no one was outside. I felt a little uneasy, so I peeked out the window, but there was no one there. I tried not to think about it and decided to sleep well that night. 2 weeks later, I was walking by Walmart and suddenly remembered Ciara. I walked into the store and searched for her, but she wasn't there. So I left and went to a nearby coffee shop to sit alone with my thoughts. While I was there, I decided to call her. She answered the phone, her voice shaky. Hi, Katie, how are you? She said. Can you come to the coffee shop? I'll send you the location, I asked. Yeah, my shift's almost over, just send me the address, she replied. A little while later, she showed up. I stood up to greet her, shook her hand, and tried to make small talk, hoping to know more about her. How's everything with your boyfriend? I asked. She suddenly burst into tears. He left me, and what hurts the most is that I'm pregnant with his baby. My mind went blank. How do you know you're pregnant? I asked. How long has it been? I don't know. I just took a pregnancy test and it was positive, she said, her voice trembling. You should consider terminating it. Don't worry, my best friend is a great doctor and she can help you with that, I said, trying to stay calm. Ciara was sobbing and shaking. Why did you let him use you? I asked gently. Didn't you say he was in love with you? So why did he leave? Was it all a lie? I asked, confused and concerned. Ciara continued to sob. She replied, I don't know what happened. We were so good together. I let him touch me, use me, do whatever he wanted. It had been a while since he asked for a sexual relationship, and every time I said no, he would lose his mind and tell me I didn't trust him. I finally gave in and let him have his way, and then he left me that night without even calling or texting. It's been exactly 2 weeks and I haven't heard from him. She was sobbing and shaking with fear. I stood up and hugged her. She was like a daughter to me, since I was about 15 years older than her. I took her to my friend's office to help her terminate the pregnancy. She went through with the procedure, but she seemed to get weaker and weaker every time I saw her. I tried to take her to a therapist, but she said it was a waste of time. Peter knew about everything, and he suggested that we let her and her mom stay with us for a while, since Ciara couldn't work like before, and they were struggling to afford rent. Her mom wasn't really on board with it, but since she had no other choice, she finally agreed. They moved in with us, and that's when the darkest time of my life started. I could feel Peter's behavior changing. He started getting colder toward me. He didn't seem to care as much. Ciara and her mom would go to work every now and then, but her mom was home most of the time, even when I wasn't around. She'd cook, organize things, wash the dishes, or clean the house. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but she'd do it anyway, even when I asked her not to. One day, I came home late after being out with Ciara. We didn't ring the doorbell and just opened the door. I could hear sounds coming from my room. When I got to the door of my bedroom, I heard Ciara's mom talking to Peter, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. I opened the door, and there they were, sitting next to each other, talking in low voices. They acted totally normal and greeted me like nothing was wrong. I asked, "Why are you in here? Why not talk in the living room?" I smiled at both of them. They laughed, and Ciara's mom said, "Well, Peter was showing me some of your old photos, and I didn't want the living room to get all crowded with pictures and stuff. I like to keep everything neat and organized, you know." She seemed a little nervous, stumbling over her words, but I trusted Peter. I knew he wouldn't do anything wrong, so I didn't think much of it. But over time, especially during meals, breakfast, dinner, and lunch, though I wasn't home much for lunch, I could sense something was off with Peter. He stopped asking about my day, stopped caring about what I was wearing. He'd go to bed earlier than usual and just seemed distant. It wasn't like before, but whenever I asked him about it, he'd always say it was just work pressure and that he needed some time alone to clear his mind. Everything seemed fine until one day I woke up earlier than usual and realized Peter wasn't beside me. I went into the living room and saw him smoking like crazy. He'd already smoked 2 packs of cigarettes. I walked over to him, trying to rub his shoulders, and asked why he was so sad and confused, why he was smoking so much and acting so wired. He told me he was thinking about changing jobs because it was draining him, but I knew that wasn't the full story. That day passed, and Ciara started feeling better. She went back to her routine like before, studying late into the night or early morning, working her part-time job, and going to college. She'd talk about India, their traditions, the food, the clothes, and I'd record her voice or jot down everything she said. Her mom would cook Indian dishes, and we all felt like we were in heaven. But everything changed when one day I came home early and entered without ringing the doorbell. That's when I saw Ciara's mom and Peter, naked, in our bed. That's when my whole world came crashing down. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was dreaming, but it was real. The person I trusted most, my boyfriend, was in the arms of the woman I'd opened my home's door to. I couldn't shout, say a word, or even take a step forward. I just called out Peter's name, and that's when they realized I was there. Ciara's mom quickly wrapped herself in the blanket and ran out of my room. Peter just stood there, frozen like a statue, not showing any emotion or saying anything. I sat down, tears pouring down my face. Then I screamed like I was vomiting all the trust and love I had for Peter and the stupid trust I had put in Ciara's mom. She wasn't a good person. She didn't even look like her daughter. She was the devil, and Ciara was the angel. I kicked Peter out of the house and yelled at Ciara's mom, calling her a whore. Ciara was at college and had no idea what had just happened in my house. I had no idea where her mother had gone, and I didn't even bother texting Ciara that night. I was alone. That night, the doorbell rang and I opened the door, but no one was there. I locked all the doors and windows, closed the curtains, and turned on the TV. It was something I always did when I was scared. I couldn't sleep that night, so the next day I went to Walmart to find Ciara and tell her everything about her mom and what a whore her mom really was. When I got to the store, I was met with a huge crowd, police and paramedics outside the Walmart. People were whispering, saying things like, "Poor girl, what a dark day," and Why did she have to die like that? I went inside, and there I saw Ciara's mom, crying out loud, calling for Ciara. "My poor girl, why did you leave me like this? You were too young." That's when I couldn't feel my legs or my toes. My head was spinning. Ciara had passed away, but how? In the worst way anyone could imagine. Apparently, Ciara had climbed into the oven to clean it, part of her usual routine. A few minutes later, she realized the door had locked behind her. Panicked, she pressed the emergency exit button, only to find it wasn't working. The temperature in the oven started rising quickly, and Ciara screamed for help. She called out, "Help me!" Her mom and the store employees heard her, but they were too late. By the time they got to her, it was over. Her body was severely burned. I just lost it. I cried out loud because I couldn't handle the way Ciara had been taken from me, the way her mom had betrayed me, and the way Peter had broken my heart. It felt like I hadn't lost a friend, but a family member. The police are still investigating, but nothing makes sense. No one knows how the oven door got closed or how the temperature rose so quickly. No one knows why nobody was around to save her or even hear her screams. The whole thing is still a mystery.